The office was quiet, except for the soft hum of the HVAC and the rhythmic ticking of the vintage clock on the wall. Marlowe Cross's only indulgence in sentimentality. Bellamy sat behind her desk, eyes scanning the numbers of a quarterly report, though her mind wasn't really on the projections. She always stayed late on the eve of the holiday shutdown. Not because she needed to, but because she didn't want to go home. Her apartment was quiet, her wine was cheap, and her thoughts had a cruel habit of drifting toward the woman on the top floor. And Bellamy Cross, despite sharing the same last name by coincidence alone, had spent 5 years pretending that her boss didn't haunt her every damn thought. The elevator dinged. She didn't look up. No one came to her floor this late. She assumed it was just the cleaning crew, or maybe maintenance. But the door didn't close. Someone had stepped out. Her heart tripped. She looked up and nearly dropped her pen. Marlowe Cross stood in the doorway, stunning and out of place. Hair slightly tousled, jaw tight, hands buried deep in the pockets of her slate gray coat. Snow clung to her shoulders like defiance. Bellamy blinked. "Marlowe, you're still here," the CEO said. Her voice always carried a kind of cool control, but tonight there was something frayed at the edges. Bellamy slowly set her pen down. "I was finishing up Q4 projections. What are you doing on this floor?" "Looking for you." A pause. "Can I come in?" Bellamy swallowed. "Of course." Marlowe stepped inside and closed the door behind her. It felt like the temperature in the room dropped and rose all at once. Bellamy forced herself to stay seated, though her body was on high alert. It wasn't just Marlowe's presence. It was the way she stood there, like she was barely holding herself together. "Is everything okay?" Bellamy asked, keeping her voice neutral. "No," Marlowe admitted. She didn't sit. Just paced once, twice, then turned sharply to face her. "I need a favor." That made Bellamy's brow arch. "You've never asked me for a favor in 5 years. I've never needed something this badly." Marlowe's eyes were sharp and glassy. Bellamy stood now, slowly, every nerve buzzing. "What kind of favor?" "I need a wife." Silence. Bellamy stared. Marlowe flinched slightly. "My grandmother is dying," she said, voice rawer now. "She'll be at the New Year's gala tomorrow night. And she believes I'm married." Bellamy's stomach twisted. Why would she believe that? Because I told her I was. 6 months ago. She kept pushing, and I wanted her to stop asking. I never thought she'd make it to another New Year. Her jaw clenched. But she is. She's coming. And she wants to meet my wife. Bellamy blinked slowly, the pieces clicking together. "And you thought of me. You're trusted. You're respected. You know how to handle pressure. You could pull this off. Just one night. Just tomorrow." Marlowe stepped closer, like she needed to physically bridge the space between them. "I'll pay you anything." Bellamy let out a dry laugh, something sharp and bitter. "I don't want your money." "Then what do you want?" Marlowe asked, and for once she sounded nervous. Bellamy's eyes didn't leave hers. "I want a week." "A week." "A week to get to know you. Not the CEO version. You. If I'm going to convince your dying grandmother that I'm your wife, I need to know the woman I supposedly married." Marlowe didn't speak. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. Bellamy took a step forward. "I want dinners. I want you to talk to me. I want the truth. Stories. Real things. No boardroom bullshit. No walls." "You don't know what you're asking." "I think I do. The question is, can you handle it?" Marlowe looked at her like she was a puzzle she didn't know how to solve. Then, after a long breath, she nodded once. "Fine. 1 week. Starting now," Bellamy added. "Tonight." Marlowe blinked. "Tonight?" "Yes." Bellamy walked around her desk, slowly. "No assistants. No drivers. Just you. And me. And the truth." Marlowe swallowed. "What do you want to know?" "Everything," Bellamy said simply. "But we'll start with something small. What do you do when no one's watching?" Marlowe let out a slow exhale. "I play piano. At night. When I can't sleep." Bellamy tilted her head. "You play?" "Badly." "But, yeah." That tiny confession cracked something in Bellamy's chest. She could picture it too vividly. Marlowe alone in some minimalist penthouse, surrounded by shadows, letting music say what she never could. "Okay," Bellamy said. "Show me."
Now. Now.
Marlowe stared at her for a beat. Then, to Bellamy's shock, she nodded.
Fine.
"But I warned you. I'm awful." Bellamy grabbed her coat, heartbeat thudding in her throat. As she followed Marlowe to the private elevator, something deep inside her whispered that this wasn't just a game of pretend. Not anymore. And she wasn't sure if she should be terrified or thrilled. Marlowe's penthouse wasn't what Bellamy expected. She had imagined something sterile and cold, all glass and marble and lifeless perfection. But when the elevator doors opened and she stepped inside, it wasn't cold. It was quiet, yes, silent in a way that made her skin tingle, but there was warmth hidden in the details. A soft gray blanket draped over the back of a couch. Half-read books stacked unevenly beside a leather armchair. A single framed photo of a much younger Marlowe with a woman Bellamy recognized instantly from company events, the grandmother. Her expression was soft in the photo, mid-laugh, holding a child's hand. Bellamy lingered for a moment before following Marlowe further into the apartment. "You live here alone?" she asked, her voice lower now. Marlowe shrugged off her coat. "Mostly. Sometimes I don't feel like I live here at all." She walked to a cabinet near the far wall and opened it to reveal a glossy upright piano, black as ink. The bench looked barely used. "You don't strike me as the musical type," Bellamy said, stepping closer. "That's because I'm not," Marlowe replied dryly. "I never play for anyone else." "Then why now?" Marlowe hesitated. "Because you asked." That response hit harder than it should have. Bellamy sat slowly on the edge of the couch, eyes never leaving Marlowe as she pulled out the bench and sat at the piano. Her fingers hovered over the keys like she didn't trust them. And then, tentatively, she played. The melody was soft and halting, simple chords, slightly uneven, but haunting in its honesty. Bellamy didn't recognize the piece, and maybe it wasn't anything at all. Maybe it was something Marlowe made up in one of those sleepless nights. But it felt like watching her bleed without breaking the skin. When the notes faded, Bellamy didn't speak right away. Neither did Marlowe. The silence between them was thick, not uncomfortable, but charged. "Thank you," Bellamy finally said. Marlowe looked down at her hands. "I told you I was bad. You weren't. You were raw." Marlowe glanced at her then, and something flickered behind her eyes. She stood and walked to the kitchen, busying herself with pouring 2 glasses of wine. Bellamy followed. "Why me?" she asked softly. "Why not one of your friends? Or one of the women you've dated before?" Marlowe handed her a glass and leaned against the counter. "Because none of them would have made it believable." "That's not an answer." "It is," she insisted. "I've never introduced anyone to my grandmother. She'd see through the act in a second. She always does." "But you think I can fool her?" "No," Marlowe said, eyes meeting hers again. "I think it won't be an act with you." Bellamy's breath caught. She looked away first. "You don't even know me, Marlowe." "I watch you," she said quietly. "At work. I notice things. How you step in when the interns are overwhelmed. How you remember everyone's birthdays without needing a calendar. How you speak in meetings only when it matters, and when you do, people listen. You're not invisible to me, Bellamy. You never were." The words hit her like a wave. And it wasn't just that Marlowe had been paying attention. It was how she said it like it mattered. Like Bellamy mattered. "You're still not answering the real question," Bellamy said, her voice steadier than she felt. "What's that? Why lie at all? Why tell your grandmother you were married?" Marlowe looked down into her wine glass like it might offer an escape. "Because she's dying. And she's the only family I have left. She wanted so badly for me to be happy. I didn't have the heart to tell her I wasn't. Or that I didn't even know what happiness looked like anymore." "And now?" Bellamy asked.
"Now."
"I'm scared she'll see the truth." Bellamy moved closer. "Then don't lie to me. Not this week. Not even once." Marlowe's throat moved as she swallowed. Okay. Bellamy nodded, then set down her wine. Come here, she said, surprising even herself. Marlowe tensed. Why? Because if I'm going to be your wife, I need to know what it feels like to stand this close to you and not fall apart. That stole the breath from Marlowe's lungs. But she obeyed. She stepped forward until they were inches apart. Bellamy tilted her chin, eyes searching hers. This is what I need to know. The way you look at me when there's no one else around. The sound of your voice when you're not trying to be the boss. The way your breath changes when I get too close. Marlowe's gaze flicked to her mouth. You're playing with fire. Maybe, Bellamy whispered. But I want to know how it burns. Marlowe leaned in, slowly, like her body couldn't help itself. But Bellamy placed a hand on her chest, not pushing her away, but not pulling her closer either. Not yet. Marlowe's breath trembled. Why not? Because I want it to mean something. And right now we're still pretending. She stepped back, letting the distance settle between them again. Pick me up tomorrow at 7. Dinner. Somewhere you'd take someone you were falling in love with. Marlowe gave a hollow laugh. You assume I've ever been in love. Bellamy smiled sadly. That's what I'm afraid of. And with that, she walked to the door, not looking back. Marlowe didn't stop her. She just stood there, hands still tingling where Bellamy had touched her, chest aching with something that felt a lot like the beginning of a storm. Bellamy opened her closet and immediately regretted giving Marlowe that specific instruction. Dinner. Somewhere you take someone you were falling in love with. God, what had possessed her to say that out loud? It sounded romantic when she said it, intentional, confident, but now, standing half-dressed in front of a mess of options, it felt reckless, dangerous, honest. She settled on a navy blue dress that wasn't flashy, but hugged her in all the right places. Understated, but undeniable. She kept her jewelry simple, her makeup light, and tried not to look like a woman who'd spent the entire day replaying a piano melody in her head while wondering how it would feel to kiss her boss. Her maybe fake wife. When the knock came at exactly 6:59, her stomach flipped. She opened the door and nearly forgot how to breathe. Marlowe was wearing black slacks and a dark green blouse with an open neckline that exposed just enough collarbone to make Bellamy's thoughts derail completely. Her hair was down tonight, softer, less CEO and more human. Dangerous. Beautiful. You clean up well, Marlowe interrupted, eyes flicking down, then quickly back up. Very well. Bellamy smiled, locking the door behind her. You're nervous. I'm not. You're fidgeting. Marlowe looked at her hands and, indeed, stilled them immediately. This is new territory. Pretending to date someone? Trying not to. That shut Bellamy up for a second. The ride was quiet, the tension between them simmering in every glance, every silence. Marlowe didn't take her to one of the exclusive places she usually frequented. Instead, they pulled up to a small, quiet Italian restaurant tucked into the edge of Lincoln Park. Candlelight flickered in the windows. It looked like the kind of place where couples whispered secrets and stole bites from each other's plates. Bellamy raised an eyebrow. Didn't know you had it in you. There's a lot you don't know about me. That's the point of this week, isn't it? Inside, the hostess clearly recognized Marlowe, but said nothing beyond a respectful smile as she led them to a private booth near the back. The lighting was dim. Intimate. Hey, if you're enjoying this story, go ahead and drop a like to help us grow even more. And let me know in the comments, on a scale from 0 to 10, what score would you give this story so far? Your feedback makes all the difference. Too intimate. Bellamy slid into her seat and took a slow breath. So, she began, unfolding her napkin. Are we doing small talk, or are we going for the heavy stuff? You decide, Marlowe replied. You set the rules. Bellamy studied her across the table. Tell me about your parents. The flicker of pain in Marlowe's eyes was immediate. Wow, she said softly. You don't waste time. Nope. Marlowe looked down at her hands. My father died when I was 12. Plane crash. My mother wasn't made for grief. She shut down. Left me with my grandmother while she disappeared into wine bottles and hotel rooms. I haven't seen her in years. Your grandmother raised you?
Yes.
She was strict, brilliant, brutal, but she loved me. Her voice softened just slightly. Still does. That's why I won't disappoint her. I don't think I could handle watching her die thinking I'm still broken. Bellamy's heart squeezed. You're not broken. You don't know that. Then let me, Bellamy said. Let me see the parts you hide. Even the messy ones. Marlowe looked at her like no one ever had before, not with authority, not with desire, but with something dangerously close to hope. Their food came. They barely touched it. Conversation flowed in stops and starts, sometimes playful, sometimes piercing. Bellamy learned that Marlowe hates the cold but loves snow. That she reads Russian novels in the bath. That she cries during movies but only when she's alone. In return, Bellamy revealed how she grew up in foster homes, how she'd spent most of her 20s convinced no one would ever really choose her. How her biggest fear isn't being alone, it's being invisible. Marlowe didn't speak after that. She reached across the table, fingers brushing against Bellamy's knuckles. The touch was light, hesitant. You're not invisible to me. Bellamy froze, then turned her hand over and let their palms press together. She didn't pull away. When they left, the air outside was icy and crisp. Their hands stayed close, fingers almost touching but not quite. At her door, Bellamy paused with her keys in hand. So what now? Do we debrief? Rate the believability of our fake romance. Marlowe stepped closer. There's nothing fake about how I looked at you tonight. Bellamy's breath caught. Marlowe's hand brushed her cheek, a single, reverent touch. If I kiss you, she said, voice rough with restraint, I won't stop. Then don't, Bellamy whispered. But Marlowe didn't move. She closed her eyes like she was fighting something brutal inside herself. Not yet, she said. You deserve more than impulse. Bellamy's lips parted, but no words came. Just a slow, aching nod. Tomorrow, then. Tomorrow, Marlowe agreed. She turned and walked away. Bellamy stood in the hallway long after the elevator doors closed, her heart pounding with a terrifying certainty that this wasn't pretend at all. The next morning, Bellamy was useless at work. Her calendar was packed with meetings and end-of-year wrap-ups, yet all she could think about was the heat of Marlowe's fingers brushing against hers, the way her voice cracked when she whispered, "You deserve more than impulse." It wasn't just the near kiss, it was everything around it. The confessions, the honesty, the terrifying possibility that none of this was pretend anymore. And Bellamy had asked for this, hadn't she? She demanded something real. She just hadn't expected Marlowe Cross to actually start giving it. At 11:34 a.m., her work phone buzzed. New message, Marlowe Cross. Be ready at 7. Casual clothes. We're staying in tonight. Bellamy stared at the message, heart racing. She typed out, "Should I bring anything?" but didn't send it. Because whatever she brought, food, wine, caution, none of it would protect her from what was happening between them. At 7:02 p.m., she knocked on Marlowe's door, wearing jeans, a soft sweater, and absolutely no defenses. The door opened. Marlowe wore a faded t-shirt and leggings, barefoot, her hair pulled into a loose knot. She looked nothing like the CEO Bellamy had worked under for 5 years. She looked real. "You're late," Marlowe said, voice soft. "You're barefoot," Bellamy shot back, stepping inside. "I didn't think I needed armor tonight." Marlowe smiled faintly. "You might." In the kitchen, there was wine breathing on the counter, candles flickering near 2 plates of takeout. The scent of garlic and herbs filled the space. Bellamy turned to her, teasing, "You cooked." "I ordered. I don't want to poison you." Bellamy laughed, and for a moment, they were just 2 women at the start of something neither of them knew how to name. They ate on the floor, cross-legged on a plush rug near the piano, drinking red wine and watching the snow fall through the massive windows. Bellamy had never felt so seen in silence. Marlowe watched her as if memorizing her features, her thoughts, the way she tilted her head when curious. "Do you remember the first day we met?" Marlowe asked. Bellamy smirked. "You were terrifying. You were late to your own onboarding." "There was a train delay," Bellamy defended. I was sweating bullets and sure I'd be fired before I even got my badge. Marlo tilted her head. I remember thinking you had good instincts. You didn't speak unless you had something to say. That stuck with me. Bellamy's heart fluttered. Why didn't you ever say anything? Because you worked for me. And because I didn't trust myself not to ruin everything. Bellamy set her glass down slowly. Ruin what, exactly? Marlo's gaze didn't falter. The way you made me feel. Even then. The words hung between them, sharp and tender. And now? Bellamy asked. Now I'm trying to decide if I'm strong enough to stop hiding. Bellamy leaned in just slightly. You've hidden for so long you don't know what honesty feels like. That's not fair. No, Bellamy said gently. It's just true. Marlo's jaw tightened, but she didn't deny it. Instead, she stood and extended her hand. Come here. Bellamy took it. Let herself be led to the piano bench. You want to play again?
No.
I want you to play. Bellamy froze. I don't know how. Then fake it. Like you're faking being my wife. We're not faking anything anymore, Bellamy whispered. Marlo looked at her then. Really looked, and whatever wall was left between them crumbled. She reached up and touched Bellamy's face, thumb brushing her cheekbone. Bellamy didn't move. She didn't breathe. She just let it happen. Let Marlo look at her like she was something rare. Something dangerous. Something wanted. I'm not good at this, Marlo whispered. At feelings. At people. At not ruining things I want. Then stop trying to control it, Bellamy said. Just feel it. Their mouths were inches apart. Bellamy's hand slid up Marlo's arm, fingers curling gently around the back of her neck. If I kiss you, she murmured, echoing Marlo's words from the night before, I won't stop either. Then don't, Marlo said. This time, no one pulled away. The kiss wasn't cautious. It wasn't tentative. It was 5 years of silence breaking open. It was messy and soft and wild and aching, all at once. Marlo kissed like she was starving. Like she didn't know how to take it slow. Like this was the only way she knew how to speak. Bellamy kissed her back with every ounce of control she'd fought to maintain, now unraveling completely. When they finally pulled apart, breathless, Marlo rested her forehead against Bellamy's. I can't fake this, she said. Good, Bellamy whispered. Because I'm not pretending anymore. And neither of them noticed that outside, the snow had stopped falling. Bellamy woke up wrapped in warmth that wasn't hers. The morning light filtered in through the windows of Marlo's penthouse, soft and golden, casting long shadows across the hardwood floors. They hadn't gone to bed. Not really. After the kiss, they'd curled up on the couch, Marlo's head resting on Bellamy's shoulder, Bellamy's fingers tracing slow, absent-minded patterns on the inside of her wrist. Neither had spoken much after the kiss. There hadn't been a need. The silence had said everything. But now, in the brightness of morning, reality was pressing in. Bellamy stretched gently and looked toward the kitchen, where Marlo stood barefoot, pouring coffee into 2 mugs. Her shirt was wrinkled, her hair a tousled mess, and she was humming something under her breath. Bellamy had never seen her look more unreachable or more human. I don't usually wake up with someone in my space, Marlo said, not turning around. I can go, Bellamy offered. You don't have to. Marlo finally turned, 2 mugs in hand. But I won't pretend I know what this means yet. Bellamy took the coffee. Their fingers brushed. Her stomach flipped. It doesn't have to mean anything right now, she said softly. We still have a few days before the gala. Let's just see what happens. You make that sound easy. It isn't, but it's real. Marlo gave a dry laugh and leaned against the counter. You're different than I expected. What did you expect? Someone who would keep their distance, who would play the part and leave it at that. And instead you got me, Bellamy said, taking a sip of her coffee. Terrible actress. Honest to a fault. 0 boundaries. No, Marlo said. I got someone brave enough to ask for more. The air shifted between them again. Not heavy, not uncertain, just full. Bellamy took a breath. Can I ask you something? You're going to anyway. What do you want out of this? I mean, really? Not the gala. Not your grandmother. Us. Marlo stared into her coffee like it held secrets. I don't know yet. That's fair. But I know I don't want to stop what's happening. Bellamy's heart squeezed. Then don't. Later that afternoon, back at work, the contrast was jarring. Marlo in her tailored suit again. Cold lines. Sharp voice. The CEO mask locked back in place. Bellamy watched her from the end of the conference table, feeling like she'd imagined everything. When the meeting ended, the others filtered out, but Marlo stayed seated. Her gaze met Bellamy's, just for a second, and in that moment, the world stilled. She didn't smile, didn't move, but something passed between them, wordless and solid. Recognition. That night, Bellamy got home to find a package at her door. Inside, a simple note. Dinner tomorrow. Dress warm. Below it, a scarf. Deep blue. Soft as sin. No signature. No need. The next day, Marlo drove her out of the city, just far enough that the skyline disappeared behind them and the trees started to thicken with snow. Bellamy clutched the scarf tighter, laughing when Marlo refused to say where they were going. Is this a kidnapping? She teased. You're very calm for a potential victim, Marlo shot back. That's because I know where you live. They pulled up to a quiet lake house just as the sun started to set. The lake was half frozen, reflecting the pink-orange sky like glass. Smoke curled from the chimney. Lights were already on inside. Bellamy turned to her, stunned. You own this. Inherited it, Marlo said, killing the engine. I haven't brought anyone here. Not since, she stopped. Bellamy waited. Not since my dad. Bellamy reached across the seat and squeezed her hand. Thank you for bringing me. Inside, the house was warm, rustic, filled with memories Marlo hadn't touched in years. She lit the fireplace. Bellamy walked through the living room, touching things gently, the bookshelves, the old photographs, the scratched kitchen table. It's beautiful, she whispered. It was his favorite place. I can see why. I used to come here when I needed to breathe, but then work got in the way. Life. People. You stopped letting yourself breathe. Marlo looked at her. Until you. Bellamy's pulse roared in her ears. This doesn't have to be complicated, she said. We make it complicated. With fear. With pretending we don't want what we want. What do you want? Marlo asked. Tonight? Bellamy smiled. You. As you are. No walls. And after? We'll figure it out. But we start with honesty. Marlo reached for her, and Bellamy let herself fall into the embrace. This time, there was no hesitation. No mask. They kissed like it was permission. Like it was a choice they were both finally making without shame or secrecy. And when they collapsed onto the old couch in front of the fire, tangled in each other, Bellamy knew one thing with terrifying clarity. She was already in too deep. Bellamy woke slowly, her cheek pressed against bare skin, the smell of smoke and winter and Marlo tangled in the fabric of the blanket draped over them. The fire in the hearth had long since died to embers, but the heat between their bodies kept the cold at bay. Marlo's arm was around her, firm and secure, like her body knew what her mind hadn't dared to say yet. Bellamy didn't move. She didn't want to break the fragile spell between them. The quiet in the lake house was heavy, not awkward, but full of the unsaid. And there was so much unsaid. They hadn't talked after. Just the sound of breathing, skin on skin, lips against mouths and necks and shoulders. The kind of intimacy that stripped everything bare without needing words. But now, in the quiet gray light of morning, the words were coming. They had to. Marlo stirred. Her fingers flexed slightly against Bellamy's hip, and her voice came out low and rough. Are you awake? Bellamy murmured, eyes still closed. Should I be pretending I'm still asleep? Only if you want me to make you coffee in bed. You don't know how to make coffee. Not true. I just don't know how to make it well. Bellamy smiled, but the humor faded quickly. She sat up slightly, pulling the blanket higher over her chest. Marlo mirrored her, one arm resting behind her head. You're thinking too hard, she said. And you're not thinking enough. Try me. Bellamy looked at her. Really looked. We weren't supposed to cross that line. You gave me the choice, Marlowe said softly. I chose you. And what happens now? You tell me. Bellamy stood, dragging the blanket with her, pacing slowly across the room. We still have 2 days until the gala. 2 days of pretending. Except now I don't know where the pretending ends. Neither do I. Marlowe sat up fully, sheet pulled around her waist. But I know I don't want this to be a pause in my life. I don't want to go back to being the version of me that doesn't feel anything. Bellamy turned, arms crossed. You're not just my boss, Marlowe. You're the CEO of the company I've worked my ass off to succeed in. We crossed a line that complicates everything. We crossed a line that made everything real. And what if it all crashes down? Then let it, Marlowe said, standing now too, walking toward her slowly. Let it crash. Let it burn. But don't pretend you didn't want this as badly as I did. Bellamy's throat tightened. I did. I do. That's the problem. Marlowe stopped in front of her. Then we find a way forward. Together. Bellamy didn't answer. Instead, she leaned into the touch when Marlowe reached up, brushing a strand of hair from her face. We should get back, Bellamy said eventually. Work won't stop just because we want it to. No, Marlowe agreed. But tonight, we'll talk more. Back in the city, everything was sharper, colder. The edges of reality scraped too close, and Bellamy found herself questioning every glance, every breath. She worked in silence most of the afternoon, catching up on reports, trying to anchor herself in routine. At one point, she passed Marlowe in the hallway. A brief nod. No smile. No acknowledgement of what had happened the night before. It made sense. It was safe. And it nearly undid her. When she returned to her desk, a note was waiting in her inbox. Not an email. A real note. Folded. Her name written in Marlowe's handwriting. She opened it with shaking hands. Meet me at the piano tonight. No pretending. At exactly 8 p.m., Bellamy stepped into the penthouse again. It was quiet, dim, and the piano sat uncovered like an invitation. Marlowe stood nearby, glass of wine in hand, her expression unreadable. You came, she said. You asked. Did you think I wouldn't? I wasn't sure. Bellamy took a breath. Why did you want to meet here? Because this is where I stop pretending. Where I remember who I am when the world isn't watching. Then tell me, who are you? Marlowe set the glass down. I'm terrified. Of me. Of this. Of wanting something I don't know how to keep. Bellamy walked over, slow, deliberate. Then let's learn together. You make it sound easy. I make it sound worth it. Marlowe sat at the piano bench and gestured for Bellamy to join her. They sat side by side, thighs touching, silence stretching. I've never trusted anyone this fast, Marlowe admitted. That's probably because you've never let anyone get close enough. Bellamy turned slightly, her face inches from Marlowe's. You said no pretending. So tell me something real. Marlowe's eyes searched hers. When I kissed you, I wasn't afraid. Not until after. Why? Because it didn't feel like the beginning of something casual. It felt like the beginning of everything. Bellamy exhaled, voice barely above a whisper. Then don't run from it. Marlowe reached for her hand, lacing their fingers together on the piano keys. I'm trying not to. Bellamy leaned in and kissed her softly, not a kiss of fire, but of promise. Of patience. Of something neither of them fully understood, but both were willing to fight for. And for the first time, Marlowe didn't flinch. She held on. The gala was 24 hours away. Bellamy stood in front of her closet again, heart pounding, mind reeling. She had asked for a week to get to know the real Marlowe, and now that week was almost over. The fake wife role she'd agreed to play had somehow dissolved into something far more dangerous. She no longer needed to act like she loved Marlowe.
She only needed to hide that she did.
Her phone buzzed with a message. Marlowe, come to the penthouse.
Now.
No excuses. Bellamy tried not to smile, failed completely, and grabbed her coat. When the elevator opened, Marlowe was waiting. Not in a suit. not in leggings, but in a deep red sweater and soft, dark jeans. Her hair was half up, soft curls framing her face, and there was something almost shy in the way she stood. She held 2 mugs of tea, silently offering one. Bellamy took it. Their fingers brushed. "You look like you didn't sleep," Bellamy murmured. "I didn't," Marlowe admitted. "I kept thinking we're about to stand in front of my entire family, and they'll be watching us. Every touch, every glance, every detail. That's what this week was for," Bellamy said gently. "We've been preparing." "Not like this." Marlowe took a breath. "I want to practice. Not just the story, the closeness. How we move, how we touch. I want it to feel second nature." Bellamy's heart did a slow somersault. "You want to practice being in love with me?" "I want to practice not messing it up in front of the woman who raised me. And maybe just a little bit because you want to touch me again?" Bellamy teased, voice low. Marlowe's lips twitched. That too. They moved into the living room. No piano tonight. Just soft music in the background, a bottle of wine already open. Marlowe stepped forward first, reaching for Bellamy's hand. "If we were really married," she said, "I think I'd always reach for you like this." She lifted their joined hands, fingers interlacing. "Like it's automatic." Bellamy stepped closer. "And I'd probably lean into your side. Just a little. Not too much. Just enough to let people know we don't have space between us." "Right," Marlowe murmured. "And maybe I'd touch your face sometimes. Just lightly. Like this." Her fingers grazed Bellamy's cheek. Bellamy's breath hitched. "And I'd look at you like I couldn't help it, even in a room full of people." Marlowe's eyes darkened. Exactly like that. They kept moving, practicing little gestures, an arm around the waist, the subtle tug of a sleeve, the soft murmur of a nickname. It should have felt like rehearsal. It didn't. It felt like temptation wrapped in permission. Bellamy's body ached with awareness. Marlowe was so close, so present, her barriers down, her touch lingering longer than it should. "We should practice dancing," Bellamy said suddenly. "They'll expect to dance. Here." "Why not?" Marlowe pulled out her phone and queued up a song, something slow and old and devastatingly romantic. Bellamy stepped into her arms, their bodies fitting together as if they'd done this 1,000 times. Marlowe's hand rested low on her back. Bellamy's fingers curled around her shoulder. They moved together like the rest of the world didn't exist. "If I'd met you outside of work," Marlowe said quietly, "do you think this would have happened anyway?" "I think I would have fallen for you regardless of the setting," Bellamy replied. "Office. Grocery store. Middle of a war zone. You make it sound inevitable. You make it feel that way." The song played on, wrapping around them like a spell. Marlowe leaned in, her forehead pressing lightly against Bellamy's. "I'm scared of what happens after tomorrow." "Because the performance ends?" "Because I won't want it to." Bellamy's fingers tightened. "Then don't let it end. You're asking for more than I know how to give." "I'm not asking," Bellamy whispered. "I'm waiting." They stopped moving, but neither stepped back. The music faded. Marlowe's lips were so close, her breath warm against Bellamy's skin. But she didn't kiss her. Not yet. "Instead," she whispered, "come with me." She led Bellamy to the bedroom, slow, deliberate steps. Not rushed. Not reckless. Just quiet certainty. There was no seduction in the way she touched Bellamy tonight. Only reverence. She undressed her slowly, tenderly, like unwrapping something fragile and sacred. Bellamy returned the gesture, fingers trembling slightly. No one had ever touched her like this. No one had ever seen her like this. Marlowe's mouth found hers, and this time the kiss was different. Less fire. More devotion. It was slow. Deep. Unhurried. They undressed each other like it mattered. Because it did. They made love as if the clock didn't exist. As if tomorrow wasn't coming. As if nothing else mattered but this room, these hands, this heartbeat. When they collapsed against each other, tangled and breathless, Marlowe whispered something against Bellamy's skin. "I think I'm falling." Bellamy kissed her shoulder. "Then fall." I'm right here. The gala glittered like a dream neither of them had dared to have. The Cross family estate had been transformed into something out of a winter fairy tale. Golden lights draped across ivy-covered archways, live string quartet playing under a crystal chandelier, servers weaving through the crowd with trays of champagne. But none of it compared to the moment Bellamy stepped out of the car and onto the marble steps. She wore a black dress that fit her like a secret, her hair swept to the side, eyes sharp and watchful. Marlowe, in a tailored midnight blue suit, stood beside her with one hand placed gently at the small of her back. She looked calm,
Poised.
but Bellamy could feel the tension in her body like a live wire. "Last chance to run," Bellamy whispered. "And leave you standing here looking like that? I'd rather die." They walked in together. Heads turned. Whispers rose. Marlowe kept her hand on Bellamy, grounding them both. They made it 20 feet into the ballroom before the matriarch herself appeared. Vivian Cross, regal even in her fragile state, sharp eyes, cane in hand, mouth drawn into a line of critical curiosity. Bellamy recognized the power in her immediately, the way people stepped aside like waves around her. "Marlowe," she said, her voice paper-thin but commanding. "And this must be Bellamy," Marlowe said softly. "My wife." Bellamy extended her hand, steady despite the pulse hammering at her throat. "It's an honor to meet you, Mrs. Cross." The older woman took her hand and held it for a long time. "Too long." "Vivian," she corrected. "You're family now." Bellamy smiled, even as her stomach twisted. "Thank you." Vivian didn't release her hand. "You're very beautiful." Unusual for Marlowe. She always picks women she doesn't have to talk to afterward. Marlowe made a choked noise. Bellamy didn't blink. "Well, I plan to make conversation a daily event. We talk about everything." Vivian's eyes flicked between them. "Do you now?" "Yes," Bellamy said, her voice gentle but unshakable. "Every part of her life matters to me." Something passed through Vivian's expression, approval, maybe, or simple curiosity. "Then come," she said. "Sit with me. Tell me what you love about my granddaughter." Bellamy glanced at Marlowe, who looked halfway between panic and awe. Then she followed Vivian across the ballroom and into a smaller, quieter room, where champagne waited and the lights were softer. The moment felt too intimate. Too dangerous. Bellamy sat beside the woman who held Marlowe's childhood in the palm of her hand. Vivian adjusted a thin shawl across her shoulders.
"Now."
"Impress me." Bellamy took a slow breath. "I love that she's difficult," she said. "That she doesn't let people in easily, and when she does, it means something. I love that she plays piano when no one's watching. That she reads poetry and pretends not to cry. That she pretends not to care and still shows up for every person who needs her, whether they know it or not." Vivian blinked slowly. "I see. And what does she love about you?" Bellamy's throat tightened. "You'll have to ask her that." Vivian smiled for the first time. "I already know." Marlowe stepped into the room then, eyes searching for Bellamy immediately. Vivian waved her away.
"Go."
"Dance with your wife. I've already approved." Bellamy stood, exhaling hard as she passed Marlowe. "What happened?" Marlowe asked, eyes wide. "I survived." They returned to the ballroom, and the music shifted. A slow waltz. The crowd parted. All eyes on them. "Ready," Marlowe whispered. "No, good." Marlowe took her hand, guiding her onto the dance floor. Their bodies aligned with ridiculous ease. The first few steps were awkward, but then Bellamy relaxed into the rhythm, letting herself be held. "You were incredible in there," Marlowe murmured. "I thought she'd eat you alive." She tried. "And I made her laugh." Marlowe's fingers tightened at her waist. "She hasn't laughed in months." "Then I guess I win." They moved slowly, deliberately, their surroundings fading. Bellamy felt eyes on them, but didn't care. Not when Marlowe looked at her like this. Not when her thumb brushed softly against Bellamy's back. "I hate that we're lying to her," Marlowe said under her breath. "So stop lying." Marlowe's brow furrowed. "Bellamy, tell her the truth. Tell her this started as a lie, but now it isn't. Because I think we both know it's not." Marlo stopped dancing. The silence around them felt deafening. "Not here," she whispered. "Not yet." "Why not?" "Because I'm not ready to say it out loud." Bellamy's expression softened. "But you feel it." Marlo didn't answer. She didn't have to. It was all over her face. In the way she looked at Bellamy. In the way her hand refused to let go. The countdown to midnight began.
10, 9, 8,
Bellamy stood at her side, breathless.
7,
6. Marlo turned to her, her face caught between fear and longing.
5, 4,
She cupped Bellamy's face in both hands. 3.
2,
"I don't want to lie anymore," she whispered.
1.
And then she kissed her. Fireworks exploded outside the glass walls. Bellamy kissed her back, fierce and sure. It was no longer performance. It was confession. When they pulled apart, the world was blurred, spinning, too loud. But Marlo held her still.
"We'll tell her," she said.
"But not tonight." Bellamy nodded, heart trembling. "Just don't take too long." Marlo looked at her like she never wanted to look away. "I won't. I promise." And in the middle of the richest room in the city, surrounded by secrets and champagne, two women stood tangled in a lie that was already turning into the truth. The morning after the gala, the city was silent beneath a soft blanket of snow. Bellamy sat on the edge of Marlo's bed, staring out the window, wrapped in one of her button-down shirts that smelled like cedar and something clean and heartbreakingly familiar. Marlo was still asleep behind her, one hand stretched across the sheets where Bellamy had been just moments ago. The kiss at midnight had changed everything and nothing. It was real, unmistakably real. There had been no audience in Marlo's eyes when she pulled Bellamy close. No act in the way her mouth found hers. No performance in the way her hands had trembled afterward. But the lie still hung between them, suspended like frost in the air. Bellamy turned as Marlo stirred, blinking against the morning light. "You left the bed," she murmured. "Only for a second," Bellamy said softly. "I didn't want to wake you." Marlo sat up slowly, brushing hair out of her eyes. "I kept dreaming that I kissed you in front of everyone. That it wasn't a dream at all. That I couldn't stop." "You didn't dream it." "Good," Marlo said. "Then I'm not crazy." Bellamy gave her a small, sad smile. "Just incredibly brave or reckless." "Is there a difference? With you?" "Probably not." Marlo reached for her, but Bellamy stood and moved toward the window. "We still haven't told her," she said. "You promised we would." "I know. Then why haven't you?" Marlo hesitated. "Because if I tell her it was fake, and then I tell her it isn't anymore, I'm afraid she won't believe me." Bellamy turned, arms crossed. "So, you're protecting the story, not me." "I'm protecting us," Marlo snapped, then softened immediately. "I'm trying to protect what we've barely begun. I don't want to expose it to her doubts, or the company, or the world before we've even figured out what it is." "And what is it?" Bellamy asked, voice almost a whisper. "Because it feels like love, Marlo. And if it is, it deserves better than half-truths and shadows." Marlo stood, closing the distance between them. "It is love," she said. "That's the terrifying part. I didn't expect to feel this. I didn't think I was capable of it. But I look at you, and everything else gets quiet. And I hate that I'm afraid, but I am. Not of you. Of what I might do to ruin this." Bellamy's eyes glistened. "Then don't ruin it. Tell her. Tell everyone. Let me stop being a secret you're scared to lose." Marlo nodded slowly, her voice raw. "Okay. Today." The rest of the morning passed in a strange blur. Bellamy showered and dressed in silence, while Marlo sat at the kitchen counter, sipping coffee and staring into nothing. When the car arrived to take them back to the Cross estate, neither spoke during the ride. The weight of what they were about to do settled between them like a storm cloud. Vivian was waiting in the sunroom, a blanket across her knees, her eyes still sharp behind delicate glasses. "You look tired," she said without preamble. "We had a late night," Marlo replied, sitting beside her. Bellamy stayed standing, unsure if she was welcome yet. Vivian gestured toward the chair across from her. "Sit down, dear." You look like someone's about to read you your last rites. Bellamy smiled tightly and sat. Marlowe took a breath. Gran, there's something we need to tell you. Vivian's eyebrow arched. Is this about the kiss? Because, frankly, I was beginning to worry you weren't actually sleeping together. Marlowe choked on air. Bellamy blinked. Vivian shrugged. I may be old, but I'm not dead. And I know performance from passion when I see it. It was performance that first, Marlowe admitted. I lied to you, Gran. About being married.
About Bellamy.
I told you I had a wife because I didn't want to keep disappointing you. And when you said you were coming, I panicked. I asked her to pretend. Silence. A heartbeat. Then another. Vivian turned to Bellamy. And you agreed to this?
I did, Bellamy said.
But only because I wanted to know her. Not the CEO. Not the granddaughter. Just her. And now? Vivian asked. Bellamy looked at Marlowe, eyes shining. Now I love her. Marlowe's breath caught. Vivian leaned back slowly, thoughtful. Well, she said, that's a better story than any lie you could have told. You're not angry? Marlowe asked. You lied, Vivian said. But you also told the truth when it mattered. And if I had to choose between you lying to protect your heart or never letting it open at all, I'll take the lie. Because I've seen the way you look at her. And for the first time in years, I believe you're actually happy. Marlowe reached for Bellamy's hand, gripping it tightly. I am. I just didn't know how to say it until now. Then say it, Vivian said. Say it, and mean it, and live it. That's all I've ever wanted for you. Later, in the car, Bellamy leaned into Marlowe's side, tears threatening but not falling. You told her. You made me brave enough to. Bellamy rested her head on her shoulder. I don't want to go back to pretending I don't belong in your world. Marlowe kissed her temple. You don't belong in it. You are it. And for the first time, Bellamy believed her. Monday morning hit like a cold slap. Back at Cross-Tech Industries, the glitter of the gala was already distant, buried beneath the weight of emails, deadlines, and expectations. But something fundamental had changed. Bellamy wasn't just Marlowe's project manager anymore. And Marlowe wasn't just the untouchable CEO. Not to each other. Not after that kiss. Not after that truth. The elevator ride to the top floor was silent, save for the quiet hum of movement and the tension humming in Bellamy's chest. She'd worn something bold today, bolder than usual. A fitted emerald blouse tucked into high-waisted black trousers. Not flashy, but not forgettable, either. She was done pretending to be invisible. Marlowe had kissed her in front of the entire family, had told her she was love. And yet, neither of them had talked about what came next. At least, not where the company was concerned. The door opened. Bellamy stepped into the executive suite and froze. The air was already thick. Her name whispered from one cubicle to another. Eyes flicked up and down her body, then quickly away. Something was brewing. She could feel it. In Marlowe's office, the CEO stood with her back to the window, phone pressed to her ear, jaw tight. When she saw Bellamy, she motioned for her to wait. Bellamy crossed her arms and did. Marlowe ended the call and tossed the phone onto the desk with a grim sigh.
It started, she said.
What has? The rumors. The questions. Someone on the board is pushing for clarification about our dynamic. Bellamy stiffened. What exactly does that mean? It means they want to know if I gave you preferential treatment. If you manipulated your way into this position. If this entire thing was, she stopped. Strategic. Wow, Bellamy said, voice flat. Didn't realize sleeping with the CEO automatically erased 5 years of hard work and competence. It doesn't. Not to me. But to them. To some of them? Yes. Bellamy stepped closer. And what are you going to do about it? I'm going to fight it, Marlowe said without hesitation. I'm going to call an internal review and let them dig through everything they want. Because they won't find a damn thing, and I won't let them use you to attack me. Bellamy looked at her for a long, quiet moment. You mean that? I do. But it's going to be messy. And I won't lie to you. It might get worse before it gets better. Bellamy exhaled slowly. I can handle messy. I just need to know you're not going to change your mind about us the moment things get complicated. Marlo reached for her, but stopped short, mindful of the glass walls surrounding them. I'm not going to change my mind. Then let's be clear. If they're going to question my credibility, I need to be beyond reproach. No special meetings. No private conversations during work hours. No touches. No glances. I want to earn everything on my own merit, not because I'm sleeping with the boss. Marlo flinched, but nodded. Okay. I hate it, but okay. Bellamy softened. I don't want to keep us a secret, but I also don't want to be your weakness. You're not. You never were. Then prove it. Marlo gave her a long look. Dinner tonight. My place. I'll cook. You can't cook. I'll order and lie about it. Bellamy laughed despite herself.
Fine.
But I'm bringing wine and my list of terms for how we survive this without burning down everything we've built.
Deal.
Bellamy turned to leave, but paused. One more thing. Yes, you said you loved me. I did. Then say it again. Just once. Before I walk out of this room and become untouchable again. Marlo's voice dropped to a whisper. I love you. Bellamy nodded, eyes gleaming. Then I'll fight for this too. That evening, the city felt colder, harsher. As Bellamy rode the elevator back up to Marlo's penthouse, she clutched a bottle of red wine in one hand and her own fear in the other. The door opened before she knocked. Marlo stood barefoot, hair loose, wearing a soft gray sweater that made her look entirely too huggable for someone who ran a billion-dollar empire. Welcome home, she said. Bellamy stepped in, heart stuttering. Don't say that unless you mean it. I mean it. The apartment smelled like takeout and candle wax. Bellamy dropped her coat and handed her the wine. So, we're under fire. What's your plan? Be transparent. Be patient. And never give them a reason to think you're anything less than brilliant. That's a start. What's yours? Bellamy leaned against the counter. Stay excellent. Keep my head down. And when it's over, stop hiding. Marlo poured wine into 2 glasses. To not hiding. They clinked their glasses together. Bellamy sipped, then set hers down and looked at Marlo. If we survive this, we will survive this. Okay, when we survive this, I want more. I want public. I want real. Marlo stepped closer. You already have real. Then show me. The kiss was slow and full of promises. Not the kind they whispered at night. The kind they built with action. And this time, Bellamy didn't feel like a secret. She felt like a future. By Wednesday, the investigation was in full swing. Bellamy could feel the shift the moment she walked into the building. Conversations paused when she passed. Eyes lingered a beat too long. Emails arrived with a sharper tone. She wasn't being shunned, but she wasn't being embraced either. And the worst part? She hadn't seen Marlo in 2 days. Not really. Not outside of meetings, not outside of perfectly measured professional interactions that obeyed every rule. They'd agreed to distance, to caution, to silence. It was the smart choice. It just didn't feel like the right one. Bellamy sat through back-to-back department reviews, reports and numbers blurring into white noise. At one point, she caught sight of Marlo standing behind the glass of the executive boardroom. Their eyes met briefly. Too briefly. Then the moment was gone. That night, she didn't go to Marlo's. She went home, poured herself a glass of wine, and sat on her couch in the dark. No messages. No calls. Her phone stayed maddeningly silent. The next morning, a new memo was released, a statement from Marlo affirming that the internal audit was ongoing, that all leadership decisions were under standard review, and that any employee found to be operating outside policy would be held accountable, no exceptions. It was the right move. It was also a knife. Bellamy read it twice, then a third time, trying to decipher between the lines. There was no mention of her name. No mention of the truth they'd carved together. Just a clean, corporate firewall. At noon, Bellamy was called into the conference room by HR. She kept her shoulders square, chin high, voice calm. She answered every question, pulled up emails, meeting notes, and timelines. They asked about promotions, raises, travel. She gave them facts.
Clean.
Professional. She didn't mention the nights in front of the fireplace, the piano, the kiss at midnight. They didn't ask. When it was over, she walked out and found Marlowe waiting in the hallway. Her face gave nothing away, but her fingers twitched like they wanted to reach for something they weren't allowed to touch. "Can I talk to you?" Marlowe asked. "Privately?" Bellamy hesitated, then nodded. They walked in silence to Marlowe's office, the door clicking shut behind them. Bellamy stood by the window. Marlowe didn't move closer. "You did well," Marlowe said. "You kept your head." "You think I'm proud of that?" Bellamy snapped. "You think I wanted to sit there and pretend this whole thing was nothing but a mistake we'd boxed into protocol? It's temporary. It doesn't feel temporary when you're not calling, when you're not looking at me, when you vanish and leave me to guess whether any of it still matters to you." "Of course it matters," Marlowe said, voice low. "It's everything." "Then why do I feel like a risk you're trying to minimize?" "Because I'm terrified I'll ruin you, Bellamy. You worked for this. You built your reputation. I don't want to be the reason it breaks. And I don't want to be the one who gets erased because loving you is inconvenient." Marlowe flinched. "You think I'm erasing you? I think you're choosing the company over me." "No," Marlowe said, stepping closer now. "I'm choosing the company for you, so that when this storm passes, you're still standing, still proud, still yours." Bellamy's chest tightened. "And what about us? Are we still ours?" Marlowe closed the space between them, her voice just above a whisper. "Come to my place tonight." "Why?" "Because I don't want to be apart anymore. Because I need to remember what I'm fighting for." Bellamy exhaled, her anger slowly giving way to exhaustion. "Okay." That night, the city was quieter than usual. Snow had begun to fall again, soft and endless. Marlowe's penthouse was dimly lit when Bellamy stepped inside. A record played low in the background, something warm and old. Marlowe stood in the kitchen, 2 glasses of wine waiting. Bellamy didn't speak. She walked straight into Marlowe's arms. They held each other for a long time, no need for words. Just breath and warmth and the silent agreement that this was home. "I missed you," Marlowe whispered against her neck. "I was right here," Bellamy said. "You were the one who disappeared." "I know, and I won't do it again." They ate curled up on the couch, legs tangled, the pressure of the world momentarily held at bay. Marlowe turned to her halfway through dinner. "I thought about something today. Should I be worried?"
Probably.
"But I want to tell you anyway." Bellamy raised an eyebrow. "Go on." "When this is over, when we're clear and no one can question what we are anymore, I want to take you somewhere. Far away. Just you and me. No work. No scripts. No pretending. Where? Anywhere you want. The coast. A cabin. Another country. I don't care. As long as you're there." Bellamy leaned in slowly. "I'd go anywhere with you. Even if I'm still terrible at talking about my feelings? Especially then." Marlowe kissed her, slow and deep, her hand resting over Bellamy's heart. "This," she said. "This is mine now." Bellamy smiled. It always was. They didn't make love that night out of heat or urgency. They did it to reclaim something, softness, connection, the reminder that love could still bloom even in a battlefield. And when Marlowe fell asleep beside her, Bellamy whispered into the darkness, "I'm still yours. Just don't forget how to come back to me." Marlowe didn't answer, but her arm tightened around Bellamy in her sleep, and that was enough. The report was finished. 3 weeks of whispers, meetings, closed doors, and carefully calculated silences. Done. Bellamy received the email just after 9 a.m. Her stomach dropped before she even opened it. Subject: Internal audit conclusion. No violations found. She read it twice. Then a third time. No violations. No evidence of misconduct. No inappropriate behavior. It was over. She should have felt victorious. Relieved.
Free.
But instead, there was just this tight, aching knot in her chest because Marlo hadn't said a word. No message. No call. No, we did it. Just silence. Again. Bellamy closed her laptop and stood. She didn't ask permission. She didn't send a calendar notice. She marched straight up to the top floor, heels echoing in the glass corridor, fire in her blood. Marlo's assistant blinked as Bellamy passed. She's in a meeting. Not anymore. Bellamy pushed the office door open. Inside, 2 board members stood beside Marlo, mid-sentence. Everyone froze. Bellamy's voice was calm. Deadly calm. We need to talk. Marlo didn't blink. Give us a minute, she said to the board. They left, silent and curious. Bellamy shut the door behind them. So that's it, she asked. You win, the company's safe, and now what? We go back to pretending nothing ever happened. Marlo stood slowly. Bellamy, no. I've waited. I've followed your lead. I've played by every rule, swallowed every look, every word, every touch that had to stay hidden. But it's done now. We're clear. And I'm not going to be your secret anymore. Marlo took a step forward. I never wanted you to be. Then prove it, Bellamy said. Right here.
Right now.
Don't tell me in the dark. Don't whisper it in your apartment. Say it out loud. Marlo looked at her like she was the most dangerous, beautiful storm she'd ever seen. And maybe she was. You think I don't want to, she said, voice low. You think I haven't been dying to walk into a room and take your hand? Then do it. Say it. Marlo's hands curled into fists. You want me to risk everything? You already did, Bellamy said. You just won't admit that what we have is worth the risk. Marlo stared at her. Then, slowly, with something breaking free in her voice, she said, I love you. Bellamy's heart stopped. Marlo didn't stop there. I love you. I've loved you since the night you told me not to pretend with you. Since you told me the truth and demanded the same. Since you looked at me like I was more than what I built, more than what I protect. I love you, and I'm tired of pretending that's not the most important thing in this room. Bellamy swallowed hard. Say it again. I love you. Louder. Marlo stepped closer, voice rising. I love you. Bellamy reached for her, grabbed her by the lapels of her suit jacket, and kissed her. No hesitation. No restraint. Just years of want and months of aching tension exploding between them. When they finally pulled apart, breathless, Bellamy whispered, That's the woman I fell for. Then let me be her, Marlo said. Out there. Not just in here. That afternoon, Marlo sent a company-wide statement. It was brief. Unapologetic.
Clear.
She acknowledged the relationship, confirmed the audit's clean results, and added one last line that made Bellamy's knees go weak when she read it. Personal note. I stand by my choices, with integrity and with love. The response was immediate, mixed, curious, a little dramatic, but not scandalous. Bellamy received 2 emails from colleagues she respected, simply saying, proud of you. She cried alone in a bathroom stall after that. Just a little. That night, Marlo picked her up in a car with no tinted windows. They went to a quiet restaurant tucked away from the city noise. No hiding. No fear. Halfway through the meal, a woman walked by their table and said, You two looked beautiful at the gala. Bellamy froze. But Marlo just smiled. Thank you, she said, fingers brushing lightly against Bellamy's hand. Later, walking back to the car, Bellamy stopped under a street lamp and turned to her. You really did it. So did you. So what now?
Now.
Marlo slipped her arms around Bellamy's waist. Now we figure out how to be together with the whole world watching. Scared. Terrified. Bellamy kissed her.
Good.
Me too. And just like that, the storm quieted. Not because the world had stopped being loud, but because they'd stopped hiding from it. Because love, spoken aloud, was no longer a risk. It was a choice. And they were finally choosing it. They thought the hard part was over. That after the truth was spoken, after the kiss in the office and the company-wide declaration, the rest would fall gently into place. But love in the light doesn't erase everything. It just changes the shape of the shadows. Bellamy learned that the first time she entered the office with Marlowe the Monday after the announcement. They didn't hold hands. They didn't exchange glances. But still, the eyes followed. Some admiring. Some skeptical. Some cruel in ways too subtle to name. She kept her head high.
She did her job.
She led her team like nothing had changed. But inside, something was bruised. Being invisible had hurt. But being seen like this, as a headline, as a whispered speculation, cut in new places. That night, when she walked into Marlowe's apartment, she dropped her bag without a word and went straight to the kitchen to pour a glass of wine. Marlowe followed her in, reading her instantly. Rough day. I think I preferred it when they ignored me, Bellamy muttered. I heard a junior analyst say, I probably blackmailed my way into your bed. He laughed when he said it. Like I was supposed to laugh, too. Marlowe's jaw clenched. Give me his name.
No.
Because that's not the point. You can't fight every look, every comment, every assumption. She turned, her voice quiet. I just want to know this was worth it. Marlowe crossed the space between them slowly. Look at me. Bellamy did. If I could go back and choose again, I would still choose you. Every time. Even if it costs you the board's respect? Their respect doesn't keep me warm at night. You do. Bellamy looked away, emotion catching in her throat. I thought I was strong enough. I thought I was ready. But it's hard, Marlowe. It's so hard. Marlowe didn't hesitate. She took Bellamy's glass and set it down. Then she cupped her face gently, forcing her to meet her eyes. So we do it together. Every stare, every assumption, every snide little comment. I'll take half of it. Or all of it. Just don't shut me out. I'm not shutting you out. No. But you're carrying this like it's your shame. And it's not. Bellamy closed her eyes. Sometimes I wish we'd kept it private. Private isn't the same as hidden. And we were hiding. Bellamy leaned into her touch. Just hold me. Please. Marlowe did. For a long time. That weekend, they went out. Dinner at a restaurant they both liked. Small, candlelit, low music. And for the first time, they sat on the same side of the booth. Marlowe's arm casually over Bellamy's shoulders. Bellamy's hand resting on her thigh, beneath the table. A woman 2 tables over kept glancing at them. Bellamy noticed. Her stomach twisted. Marlowe noticed too. But instead of pulling away, she leaned in and kissed Bellamy's cheek. Let them look, she whispered. Let them see something real for once. Bellamy smiled. The knot loosened. After dinner, they walked through the city, the wind biting and their coats not warm enough. Bellamy shivered. Marlowe wrapped an arm around her. So, she said, tone casual, what would you think about taking a step further? Further how? Vacation. Time away. No phones. No email. Just us. You serious? I've already cleared it with the board. We both need air. Where would we go? Somewhere quiet. Somewhere with no suits. Maybe a cabin. Maybe wine by a fire. Maybe a bed that creaks too much. Bellamy laughed. You planned all that? I fantasized about all that. When do we leave? Friday. Bellamy stopped walking. You already booked it? I was hoping you'd say yes. Bellamy looked at her for a long moment, then kissed her softly under the streetlight. Yes. That night, as they packed side by side in Marlowe's bedroom, Bellamy caught her own reflection in the mirror. She didn't look like someone caught in a scandal. She looked like someone loved. Really, truly loved. Marlowe came up behind her, wrapping her arms around her waist. You know what I realized today? What? Every time I said I didn't have time for relationships, what I really meant was I didn't have time for things that didn't set me on fire. Bellamy leaned back into her. And what am I? You're the fire. And the reason I want to stay in it. They didn't need the world's approval. They had each other's. And in the end, that was the only kind of light that mattered. The cabin sat at the edge of a frozen lake, hidden among evergreens blanketed in snow. The silence was the first thing Bellamy noticed. Clean, still, untouched. It felt like the whole world had paused just long enough to let them catch up. Marlo stepped out of the car first, gloved hands carrying their bags as if she'd done this before, as if she knew exactly what Bellamy needed. Not escape, but stillness. Bellamy followed, eyes wide, breath fogging in the cold air. "You didn't tell me it would be this beautiful," she said. "You didn't ask," Marlo replied with a soft smile. "I wanted it to feel like discovery." The inside of the cabin was simple. A fireplace, a low bed wrapped in thick blankets, 2 mugs waiting on the counter, and a note in Marlo's handwriting. No cell service. No email. No distractions. Just us. Bellamy read it twice. Her hands trembled. "You really planned this?" she asked, voice tight with emotion. "I wanted to give you a place where you don't have to prove anything," Marlo said. "Where it's just you. And me. And everything we haven't said out loud yet." They didn't unpack right away. They didn't speak for a long time. They just sat in front of the fireplace as it crackled to life, curled into each other, silence stretching warm and easy. That night, over a bottle of wine and a makeshift dinner cooked clumsily together, Bellamy finally said, "I think I've been afraid to trust this. Us. Because of me? Because of everything. How fast it happened. How high the stakes are. How much it would hurt if it broke." Marlo reached across the table and took her hand. "I've never built anything worth keeping. Everything I've ever made was designed to impress people who never stayed. Until you." Bellamy blinked away tears. "You don't have to be perfect with me." "Good," Marlo whispered, "because I'm not. I burn things. I freeze people out. I make sharp decisions because I'm scared of the soft ones." "Then let's be soft here," Bellamy said. "Let's unlearn all that." They kissed across the table, slow and aching. The kind of kiss that forgives 100 silences. Later, as snow fell quietly outside, they lay in bed beneath thick blankets, bodies twined together like roots finally given space to grow. Bellamy traced her fingers along Marlo's bare shoulder. "Do you ever think about the future?" "All the time," Marlo said. "But it used to be a list. Now it's a feeling. It looks like mornings with you.
Coffee.
Your laugh in the hallway. Your hands on my back while I pretend not to be afraid." "That's not pretending anymore." "No," Marlo said. "It's not." Bellamy propped herself up on one elbow, studying her. "Do you want a life with me?" "I already do. Not just this. Not just weekends in a cabin or nights on your couch. I mean all of it. The good. The slow. The complicated. The unglamorous." "Yes." Marlo's voice didn't shake. "Yes to everything." Bellamy smiled, heart aching in the best way. "Then I have a question." "I'm listening." Bellamy hesitated, then reached into her bag on the nightstand and pulled out a small, wrapped box. "This isn't what you think it is," she said quickly. "It's not a ring. I'm not crazy." "Disappointing," Marlo teased gently. "Open it." Inside was a single brass key. Marlo stared at it. "It's to my apartment," Bellamy said. "I want you there. I want mornings and dishes and messy laundry and arguments about nothing. I want to know what it's like to come home and know you'll be there." Marlo looked up, eyes glistening. "You're giving me a key? I'm giving you the next page. I don't know how to live with someone. Then we'll figure it out. You already know how to love me. The rest is just practice." Marlo took the key, held it like something sacred. "You're the bravest person I've ever met. I'm just the one who got tired of waiting for someone else to be." They fell asleep tangled together, no more words left, just warmth and breath and the quiet promise of everything that waited beyond the cabin walls. Outside, the wind howled softly, but inside, everything was still. Everything was new. Everything was theirs. The snow had started to melt by the time they returned to the city. Bellamy watched it drip from rooftops and slide down car windows like the world had decided to thaw with them. The silence they had carried into the cabin had changed shape. No maze quiet to survive, but quiet to savor. A peace neither of them had known they needed. Back in their world, nothing had crumbled. The companies still stood. The board still trusted Marlo. Bellamy's team still respected her. But everything had shifted. Because now, when Marlo walked into a room, She didn't avoid Bellamy's gaze.
She sought it.
She smiled. She let herself be seen. Bellamy started working fewer late nights, not because her job meant less, but because she had someone to go home to. Someone who didn't just wait for her in silence, but who left lights on and music playing and wine breathing on the counter. They lived in 2 apartments for 3 weeks after the trip. Then one day, without drama or ceremony, Marlowe brought over a box of books and a toothbrush. Bellamy opened the door, took one look at her, and said, "Finally." Marlowe's toothbrush stayed. So did the books. So did the woman. Living together wasn't perfect. Marlowe hoarded the good coffee and left her clothes in odd places. Bellamy talked too much during movies and sang off-key in the shower. They argued over the thermostat. They got lost in grocery stores. They made up before going to sleep, always. Sometimes with kisses. Sometimes with just hands reaching for each other in the dark. The city changed around them, but they didn't care. Not really. Because for the first time in their lives, love wasn't something they had to protect from the world. It was something they had built inside it. On the first day of spring, Bellamy came home to the smell of garlic and tomatoes and something burning slightly in the oven. She walked in, dropped her bag, and froze. Marlowe stood in the middle of the kitchen, hair pulled back, cheeks flushed, holding 2 plates of slightly overcooked pasta and a bottle of wine. "You cooked," Bellamy said, stunned. "I Googled how not to poison your girlfriend." This was attempt 3. "Girlfriend?" Bellamy asked, walking toward her. "Did we have that conversation?" "We're having it now." Marlowe handed her a plate and leaned in. "Unless you'd prefer something stronger." "Like what?" "Like wife." Bellamy blinked. Her heart stopped. Marlowe laughed nervously. "That was not a proposal. I just meant I think about it. Sometimes.
You. Me.
Years from now. Maybe a little house. Maybe a ridiculous dog." "It sounds suspiciously like a proposal," Bellamy said, setting her plate down. "Should I say yes just in case?" Marlowe's face softened. "Say yes to forever. However we define it." Bellamy reached up, cupping her cheek, thumb brushing the edge of her mouth. "Yes," she whispered. "To all of it." They ate pasta that was half-burnt and drank wine that was too dry and danced barefoot in the kitchen. That night, Marlowe held Bellamy in bed, face buried in her neck, and whispered things she had never said out loud. Not even in the dark. "I don't know how I got here," she said. "I used to think being alone made me stronger. But it didn't. It made me tired." Bellamy stroked her hair. "You don't have to be strong all the time. Just stay." "If I stay," Marlowe whispered, "I'm staying forever." "Good," Bellamy said, kissing her forehead. "Because I don't want a temporary love. I want 1,000 slow mornings with you. I want every version of you, especially the ones you were scared to show. You have them all." The city lights blinked outside their window, but they didn't notice. The world moved on. But for Bellamy and Marlowe, time had finally settled into something soft. Something certain. Something theirs. And no matter what came next, good days, hard days, small days, extraordinary days, they knew one truth that would never change. This was no longer a performance. No longer a favor. No longer a lie. This was love. Built slowly. Chosen fiercely. Held tenderly. And neither of them would ever let it go. If you enjoyed this content and want to support the channel in a special way, try clicking the thanks button below. It's the one with the heart and $sign icon. With super thanks, you can make a direct contribution to the channel, which helps me keep creating awesome videos for you.